This manga took 30 years to release a single chapter, but surprisingly it's coming to an end. So if a manga like this can return after a 1,512 week long hiatus and even end up getting a proper ending, what does it mean for these series? Berserk is one of the greatest manga of all time, yet it's quite notorious for frequently going on hiatus. Since the inception of the series, it has gone on hiatus 46 separate times, the longest of which lasted 66 weeks. Vagabond is also one of the greatest manga of all time, and it's also notorious for frequently going on hiatus, or has been gone for 40 separate times, the longest of which is its current one, as it's been longer than 400 consecutive weeks now. But what is the likelihood a manga returns after a certain amount of time? What are some of the longest hiatuses a manga has ever returned from? And how does this compare to series on hiatus right now? But ultimately, is there a point where you should start to be concerned that a manga may never come back at all? Well, after painstakingly finding every possible hiatus chart I could find and then some, I recorded actual data on over 400 manga hiatuses and even created a formula to let you know how concerned I would be for any given series. And there might be a manga so screwed, I wish I wasn't a fan of it in the first place. What you're looking at is a chart of the most infamous hiatus-ridden series, Hunter x Hunter. You see the blue signify that a new chapter was published, while the red means there was nothing. But is a string of missed weeks right here the same as that looming wall over there? Well, hiatuses can fall under one of two categories. The first being a definite hiatus. For example, back in June of 2023, One Piece announced that it was going to go on an extended break. And the reason being that the author needed to have surgery, and along with the announcement there was a given end date of only 4 weeks. Therefore, with a specified end date in sight, this is a separate classification from what that is over there. But where things start to fall apart is with the indefinite hiatus, which is where there can be serious concerns that a manga may never come back at all. As we can see in stretches like this, Togashi was gone for 79 consecutive weeks. Here's an 80-week stretch, with the longest of them all being a 184-week streak. And maybe some of you are wondering why. Maybe some of you ask, when will a manga come back from a hiatus? And maybe some of you think, why can authors go on multi-year long breaks with nothing for their audiences? Well, writing manga is fucked up. Don't believe me? Let's create a list. Back in 2022, Togashi released a statement saying that for over 2 years, he couldn't sit in his chair to draw due to his back pain. Additionally, his pain was so bad at times he couldn't wipe his own fucking ass on the toilet and had to take a shower every time he took a dump. Miura, in a 1993 author comment at the time, said he was averaging less than 4 hours of sleep a night. Nana's author back in 2009 contracted a sudden illness that has put the series on hiatus for 14 consecutive years now. The author of Gangsta has lupus, which has led to a loss of eyesight in one eye, paralysis in the fingers, and disorders in blood vessels/organs. Fruits Basket's author suffered from a cerebral nerve illness, leading to a year-long hiatus that it went on. Manga authors are pushed to their limits, and sometimes they simply can't continue. It's a harsh reality, but the sheer physical and mental strain of the job can lead to these indefinite hiatuses. It's a waiting game, and sometimes the wait can feel endless. But what about the manga that have made a comeback? Are there any trends to point us in a direction for how long a hiatus will last? Among 410 separate instances where a manga went on and eventually came back from a hiatus that lasted a minimum of 3 weeks, here's a chart of how long it took for each of their comebacks. Under 10 is the first marker, with 60% of series making a return sometime before those initial weeks. Although the bulk of these are primarily held by series known for going on hiatus, such as Hunter x Hunter, Vagabond, and Berserk. Even series like Detective Conan and Glass Mask made frequent short returns. While at 20 weeks, about 80% of series make a return, where we can see Black Lagoon come back a couple of times. But as we continue past the 20-week marker, you might start to notice series slowly appear less and less frequently, until we eventually reach the 1-year mark. One of the most frequent offenders from this 20 to 52-week period comes from Silver Spoon, and the reason for the author's prolonged absences is actually pretty devastating, as her husband and child both suffer from a series of incurable diseases, and taking care of them ultimately accounted for 264 weeks of total hiatus. But let's zoom back out and take a look down at all of the series under this 1-year line. How many series do you think have made a return longer than 1 year? maybe over 50. That would make me feel pretty confident about manga making longer returns. But I've only uncovered 35 times where a manga returns after over a year of being on hiatus. The manga under this line account for over 91% of 410 separate hiatuses. But as we look between the hiatuses that have lasted between 1 to 2 years, this is where the monster trio strikes again: Hunter x Hunter, Berserk, and Vagabond. This range between 1 to 2 years is where series really start to solidify themselves to be known as hiatus-ridden series. Yet, as we exceed this 2-year point, the number of hiatuses that I found that go beyond dwindles to only 9. With the 9th longest being from Glass Mask, that started in 1995 and lasted 114 weeks. At number 8, Black Lagoon went missing for 124 weeks starting in 2010. Next, The Gray Man was absent for 127 weeks in 2013. The 6th longest return hiatus was a 3-year-long stretch yet again from Black Lagoon from 2014 to 2017. Hunter x Hunter's longest hiatus clocks in at number 5 for lasting 184 weeks starting back in 2019. Saint Seiya Next Dimension was gone for 209 consecutive weeks. The 3rd longest is from the legendary manga Real by Takehiko Inoue that was gone for 232 weeks starting in 2015. Me and the Devil Blues returned after 328 weeks starting in 2008. And at the tippity top, a series that breaks this entire chart was the manga to start this video, Otokuzaka's 30-year-long absence. But as I mentioned at the start of this video, Vagabond has been gone for 400 consecutive weeks now, meaning that if it were to return, it would place itself all the way in 2nd place here. And well, that doesn't bode too nicely for manga currently on hiatus. So where do some other ongoing ones lie on this chart, and how screwed are they really? Hunter x Hunter as of right now would fall right about here, but soon it'll probably be off this list. History and Ruri Dragon both surpassed the 1-year marker over here. PTSD Radio, Gangsta, and Terraformers on the other hand would make massive jumps up to here. Glass Mask would end up here, and one that deeply saddens me is that Nana is all the way up here. And shit, some of these manga on hiatus right now are a lot of the worst manga hiatuses ever. They far surpass the top of returning manga, and there's still no news for pretty much all of these series. But how screwed are they really? How scared should you be if you're a fan waiting for a return? And to try to answer this, I created a score, a ranking, a single number to try to quantify how scared I would be if I was a fan of any of these series. And to do so, I narrowed down the 5 biggest factors that would get me quivering in my boots the most for any hiatus. The first obviously being the current length, with different point ranges for varying lengths. A series would get more points if it has had a lot of past hiatuses, huge points if the current hiatus is due to health reasons, points if the author is older than 50 years old, and 1 point for every other year that the manga has been released. And the total of these gives the concern rating. Of course, a lot more goes into the status of each and every hiatus, but I think these categories give a good surface level idea of how strenuous a current hiatus may be. Now here are 10 manga on hiatus right now as of me recording this and their subsequent concern rating. The lowest one comes from History at 25.2, mostly because this hiatus is supposedly in preparation for the final arc, so there is limited concern about it not coming back at some point. It just might take some time. The next rating is 32.8 from Ruri Dragon. It went on hiatus after 6 chapters because of an unspecified health issue. Hunter x Hunter follows this up with a rating of 50.5, but that's without considering this: Togashi's most recent post on Twitter. So the fear that I have for my favorite series is pretty much 0, and I honestly couldn't be happier. iRe:Zero has a rating of 65.2. Gangsta follows that up with a rating of 66, and this is where I would start to have some pretty big worries, as both of these series have been on hiatus for multiple years now, with major health concerns for their authors. Terraformers has a rating of 75.4. Dogs, Bullet, and Carnage rapidly approaches the 100 marker with a rating of 97.5. But the following 3 series all significantly pass 100 points, which is the marker that indicates serious concern for a manga possibly not coming back, as each of which have been on hiatus for numerous years now. So to start it off with a rating of 111.5 is Vagabond. But the fact that Real, Takehiko Inoue's other manga, is currently being worked on gives me hope that one day he'll come back to Vagabond, but realistically I don't think it'll be anytime soon. The second to last comes from Glass Mask with a rating of 141.5. The first chapter came out in 1976, so time isn't really on its side, but the author has expressed interest in wanting to finish the series, although that was numerous years now, so who knows what could have changed. Now the final manga's rating is so high, I hate the fact that I like it. Not only did it pass 100 points, This manga goes even beyond that to have a rating above 200. Nanna's concern rating is 204.5. It first went on hiatus all the way back in 2009, and there hasn't really been much word since. At this point, I would honestly be surprised to ever see it come back. However, it's comforting to know that there was a time that even after 1,512 weeks of being gone, a series did come back and get to tell the ending that it deserved. For manga on hiatus, it might be bad now, but the commitment authors have for their stories is shown with the return of all of these series. I'm sure nobody wants to deliberately halt telling their stories. These are essentially their babies. They created them, nurtured them, raised them, and are trying to send them off on a final positive note. But sometimes there's just no choice. The work schedule of being a manga author is one of the most insane things I've ever seen, so I sympathize with the impossible work-life balance they have to navigate through. Shit's tough, and by me trying to create these concern ratings and charts to visualize how long series have been gone is to just really showcase to you the info I found. I thought it was cool. I'm not trying to convince anyone that a hiatus may come back or not, because as fans, we will never really know. All we can do is be patient and appreciate what we've already gotten. So despite the possible concern I may have for any given series, maybe because they don't stack up too well with the history of returned manga, to me there's still always a little glimmer of hope. As long as it isn't gone for 1,513 weeks.